We understand that you've been an educator for a lot of years and you were a principal. Why passion-driven program?
It's a good question. When I retired as a principal, I knew I was not going to retire well. So I got my doctorate. I started my own business called Passion-Driven Leadership. I chose the word passion because far too often in my profession, in the education profession, we have broken teachers teaching broken students, often led by broken principals, and the system itself is broken. In other words, we've lost our passion to inspire. And when we lose our passion to inspire, then we can't be good educators and we can't be good stewards of the gift that we've been given to educate. So my job is to help educators and those in the building who are adults to find their inspiration, to find their passion. Passion ignites purpose. Once they find their passion, everything else falls in place.
Wonderful. Since you've, inaugurated this program, and for the schools that have embraced it, what kind of changes have you seen as the founder of the program?
Well, we like to think of it as a process because it's ongoing. This process involves several stages. In fact, there are 6 frames in what we call passion-driven schools. The foundation for that is social emotional learning, literacy and intelligence for the adults, not for children, for adults. And we do that because we want to make sure that they are whole as people first. So the first thing we get them to do is to understand themselves, understand others, and appreciate the differences. Once they do that, then they can become whole people. Then we can teach them the other parts, like curriculum, instruction, restorative practices, putting systems and structures in place, and also how to get parents involved. We have to make them whole first. So that process, we have seen teachers have better relationships with each other. We've seen principals build bridges of trust with the community. We've seen teachers build bridges of trust with parents, and we've seen parents build bridges of trust with students that never happened before. So bridges of trust are being built because they're whole people first.
Is there anything within the Passion-Driven program where parents might participate?
There is. In fact, our 6th frame deals with parents, and what we do is we come in and we help parents to understand how they can understand their children better, how they can understand the educational process better, and how to navigate all those things that go into the educational process. And we help them to understand themselves better as well. In fact, we do parent workshops in a lot of our schools. I do them myself, and I have some other people do them as well. But the foundation piece for that, again, is SEL. Most parents don't understand their kids because they don't understand themselves. So we help them to understand themselves first. And in doing so, because apples don't fall far from the tree, they understand their children too.
What about the impact on students?
We've seen an increase in student morale, student achievement, which means in daily test scores, daily work that they do. In fact, one of the things that we work on in the instructional frame is student work analysis. So teachers can understand how to analyze student work, and how not just that, but how to give students feedback on what they've done well and what they need to work on. So it helps them to be more competent students and increasing student achievement.
From what it sounds like, it sounds as if the system has probably lost its humane part of education, and I understand that this is probably what you're trying to restore. Explain to us, or should I say, just expound a little bit more on that.
Sure. In 2001, George Bush II instituted No Child Left Behind, which was a business model for education. In that model, the focus became accountability. In doing so, we left the kids behind, we left the parents behind, we left teachers behind, we left principals behind. We left those things behind that made us human, that made us good citizens, that made education a place to be where people like to be and they learn. It strictly became about test scores. And not that accountability should not take place, but it should be done responsibly, and it should be done in the context of what students are learning. So, I'm all for accountability, I'm all for responsibility, and I believe in using data to make informed decisions, but because that is such a focus now, we have really lost that touch that enables teachers to teach children first and teach subjects second. In order for principals to see teachers as people first, and see them as teachers second. So, our job is to restore that and put the human part back into our profession by helping them to understand themselves and others, and to engage in intentional self-care. Because what happens is that we become so caught up into making the scores and to making sure the test is right and to making sure we don't fall behind, and that we've forgotten to take care of ourselves. So chronic stress sets in, and when chronic stress becomes a part of what we do, then all those bad things happen. Hypertension, high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, all those bad things happen when we neglect ourselves. And because most educators are caring people, they tend to neglect themselves at the expense of themselves.
Wow.
Because of accountability.
Wow. Do you feel like you're fighting an uphill battle with this?
Not uphill battle, it's just an enormous battle. Because our profession has been broken for so long. I say broken in that we've taken those things out that made us caring. For the most part, it's just an enormous work to do. And I wish I could do all the schools that we have in America for free, but it's an enormous work because we have a lot of needs, and the needs start with the grown people first.
The RAND report. Tell us about the RAND report.
Sure, the RAND report was commissioned by American Federation of Teachers, National Education Association, National Association of School Principals, and United States Educational Board. Mm-hmm. And what that study was designed to do was initially to find out the effect of COVID on teachers and principals. And several studies came from that. But the bottom line is teachers and principals are chronically stressed. And they gave some findings and some recommendations. One of the recommendations is that boards and districts find ways to make wellness a priority for teachers and principals so that they can get to the work of loving kids and educating kids. And so that report, actually there are several reports that came out of that. But that's the crux of it. And the truth is, all COVID did was pull the Band-Aid off of what was already a gaping wound. That hurt was happening way before COVID happened. But COVID just pulled the Band-Aid off because we had teachers leaving the profession in record numbers. We had very few coming in. We had principals leaving the profession in record numbers, not many coming in. And so what this process does, that this passion-driven leadership, it increases teacher attendance, it increases teacher quality, it increases student achievement. So it does all of those things. And in the long run, we suspect that it will lower the insurance rates because you won't have as many teachers taken out for sick days. They'll be coming to school.
Right. What's next?
Next is making this a process whereby it becomes legislation. Most states now they have SEL, social emotional learning, which is law for students, but it's not for the adults. And the truth is, it needs to be for the adults as well, because they're hurting equally, if not more. So part of our process, our genre, our job, is to make sure that this becomes legislation, which means that we really need to get in more schools, to have the data to show that this process really works, and that is needed. We know that the RAND report says it's needed. We know that it's needed, so there's no question about it being needed, but it's this process working.
How did you come up with this idea?
That's a great question. I was actually working as a turnaround specialist at a school in Florida during COVID. And during COVID, unlike most states, we were in school for the most part. Because remember, during COVID, there was no comprehensive plan for education.
Right.
State superintendents told local superintendents to get it done. Local superintendents told principals to get it done. Principals told teachers to get it done, and we got it done. Turnaround means that the school was about to be taken over by the state, so I had to move the school from a D to a C, and we did. However, during the process, 2 teachers had strokes on the job. Stress. And I could see the weightiness of the stress on the other teachers. So my first time doing it was as a reaction to help and keep the people in the building that could be healthy emotionally so they could teach. Since then, I've grown and the process has grown, and we now have passion-driven schools whereby we have 6 frames and phases, 3 or 4 phases in each frame that we can develop whole schools using as a foundation this process of social, emotional literacy and intelligence for the adults in the building.
What kind of impact has, I guess, formulating a program like this had on you?
It's made me realize that what I'm doing is really a need and not just a want. It's made me more passionate about doing the work, even when sometimes it seems tough to do. Tough meaning getting indoors and getting people to believe that they really need it, because part of the process is that we've been hurt so long is that we've learned how to live in hurt. As educators, we are equipped to deal with exuberance, but not equipped to accept exhaustion. Exuberance, first day of school. Exuberance, the poor card time, but exhaustion happens all the time, and we just aren't equipped to handle exhaustion. So, you know, when I see it, reinforces me the need to continue to do what we do in my company, to make teachers and principals and those that work in the school building whole again.
What kind of, reception have you gotten so far with this?
It's all been good. In fact, we track our data every time we do any kind of professional development, anytime we do a process, and all the data comes back very, very favorable. On like a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score, we range for 4 and 5, at the very lowest 3. You know, so the data indicates that what we're doing is not just needed, but it's relevant. We just need to my problem I have is with distribution. We know the process works. Now it's getting people to understand that not just the process works, but it's needed. Mm-hmm. And they'd be much better off if they embrace the process, such that they could really get about the business of educating boys and girls.
When you hear, I've done several interviews today, and I just repeatedly hear that the aha moment was when they found out their color.
Yeah, when I help people to understand themselves, first I use a psychometric inventory. Now there's several psychometric inventories out there, but the one I like to use is True Colors. It's simple, it's easy to understand, it's a quick assessment. Mm-hmm. And what it does, it helps them to understand themselves, help them to understand others, and help them to appreciate the differences. Most folk know their name, their address, phone number, some folk know their social security number, and some folk even know their license number, but they don't know why they do what they do. They don't know why they act the way they act. They don't know themselves. And a lot of the trauma that adults have come from childhood. Mm-hmm. So we help them to heal that first. And in doing so, finding their true colors, really finding their personality, finding why they act the way they act, and it really makes them better people. So that's the foundation for what we do in terms of starting this process, and we build on top of that, because they can't help children if they don't understand themselves first.
When you hear principals, teachers, and staff say that the program has, I guess, helped them in that capacity, what does that do for you?
It reinforces the fact that I'm doing the right thing for the right people at the right time.